I will be your ears, Jerry.
Do we have a quorum?
I
5?
don't think so. Maybe 5.
Sweetie, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Okay.
6.
Oh, here we go.
I'm gonna be yes.
Five is a quorum for us, right? Tony, is 5 a quorum for us? 5. Okay, yeah.
Well, I had the 5 right, I just couldn't count.
Happy wedding.
Okay, we have a call to order for the Bartlett Economic Development Commission meeting for December 11th, 2023. Roll call, please, Tony.
Jerry Cabasco,
Here.
Kirsten Erickson, Robert Perry, Bruce Sufford, not coming down the hallway, okay. Nanette Gutenkopf, Adam Lewinsky, Robert Gorski.
Here.
Mike Densford. Okay, great.
Okay, we have a quorum. So the next item on the agenda will be the approval of the previous month's meetings from November 13th. Do we have any discussion on the previous minutes?
Joey, I think you did a great job. Joey, I think you did a great job on the minutes. I wasn't here, but I feel like I was able to capture everything that happened that day, so thank you. I have no questions, and I'd like to go ahead and move that we approve them.
I'll second.
Are we approving?
I did first.
Okay, motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
One abstain, I wasn't here.
I guess technically I should abstain since I wasn't here,
Commissioner
but
Gorski, do you have a comment?
No comments, I just have to abstain because I wasn't here, so I can't really approve.
So Tony, Scott, Joey, so while I wasn't here and I was able to go through these, can I approve them? I mean, I felt like I knew everything that was happening. What's your technicality on that, Scott?
I would say no, because we didn't know if it's incorrect.
That's true.
We'll look into it. I'm not sure about Robert's Rules of Orders on commission versus committee, but I'll take a look. We can pass it, and if it's not appropriate, we can bring it to the next one.
Yeah, bring it.
Sounds good.
So do we need another motion?
You don't need a new motion because between the two of us, you wouldn't have a quorum to vote for it. So they'll look into it and they'll see if it's fine at our level, then we're good. If not, then we'll have to revisit them and approve them at the next one.
So we can move on to public comments then. All right, anybody in the audience out there like to make a comment? Guess not. So we'll move on to current development update. Tony, you gonna update us?
Yes, thank you. And even before I launch into this, kind of going area by area real generally, I will say for those of you who've been on the EDC for a number of years, you've all been on for different tenures, but one of the things we do early every year is an economic indicators report that came out of an economic development marketing plan that we did, like I say, for those of you who've been here for a bit, back in 2015. And one of the elements of that was key performance indicators. And that's not what this meeting is. That'll probably be either February or March when we take just kind of a look at hard numbers. But this goes over some of the actual projects, things that are going on in various areas of town. We realize that most of you are familiar with a lot of these. And as the introduction says, there has been a lot of economic activity this year. I mean, you don't have to drive very far in town really to see it. A lot of you guys can see it right from your front windows. And so a lot of towns do some kind of recap towards the end of the year, and that's kind of what this is on the EDC. both to remind you of some of the things going on. Also, as EDC commissioners, I know all of you, and you're some of the emissaries of the village, and people come and ask you questions, what's going on here, what's going on there, what are you doing? And like Scott says often at these meetings, you can always call and ask us anytime. So this is what you call kind of a 10,000-foot view. I'm not going to go over every business that opened or every development that happened throughout the village, because it's actually a bit more than what I have in there. And I was just thinking about it, I'm just going to kind of go slide by slide, and stop me any minute if you have a question, and between the three of us, we'll try to answer it. So the downtown, you can see, I don't need to beat this point to death, that we talked about it at the EDC for quite a few years. It was item number 1 listed on the strategic plan that the board would create every year to try to attract a second grocery store. The Dominic's closed quite a while ago at this point, you know, going on, I think it was December 2012 or 2013, like 9 years ago. So attracting a second grocery store, which you can see is almost finished. And like I said, some of you guys, like Mike, can probably watch it from the first time they broke ground to do some grading, all the way to this photo taken last week. It looks almost complete. That's the outside, obviously. The inside has a lot of work to go. So they are aiming for a late January opening. But that's kind of the talk of the town these days, among some other things. It's a prototype store. It's going to bring a lot more customers to that center every day. And we hope and expect them to patronize other businesses there, not just necessarily do their shopping and leave, but hopefully it'll also draw some shoppers from some nearby communities. So I love this picture of the boss's signature, who came before you months and months ago and kind of detailed what his vision is. We've had, I've heard some people talking about Issa's Venezuelan over the weekend, and Mo Giros, where I had lunch Friday, and Joey had dinner tonight. And so a lot of the, unfortunately, some of the smaller restaurants closed. You all recall Dogfather closed about 6 weeks ago. There's going to be a new owner of that business reopening it in short order. Scott and I also met with some entrepreneurs who purchased the first class cleaners. And if you were to look out the window and right across the street, you would see that just south of the Schwartz Pediatric is that building that's like a dry cleaners on one side, and the other side, unfortunately, is a long foreclosure process against the former Dr. Volk dentist side of the building. But anyway, there's a new buyer for the cleaners, going to convert that into a convenience store. Also, if you were to look a little further south of the boss's signature pretty picture, you would see the other side of the center that looks a little dated in comparison. There's been a new purchaser for that. I'm going to say about 6 or 8 weeks ago. I know Scott's been engaging with them a bit. We've been trying to encourage them to upgrade their side of the center as well. So that's something that kind of keep your eyes open for. We'll see if they come in for a BETA grant or what their improvements might be. But, all of a sudden, one side of the center looks drastically different than the other. And just outside, if you backtrack 1 second, just outside the downtown area, you all recall there was a kind of do-it-yourself car wash on Prospect. Again, I know a lot of these projects we talk about for a long time, and some of them take a very long time. That one was purchased probably about a year ago, and I'm sure some of you have heard about the massive delays for upgrades from ComEd for things like new transformers or new electrical service. He recently, I spoke with the purchaser recently. He's been able to upgrade the electrical service, And that one, I think, is a good candidate possibly for a BETA grant. It's not necessarily going to be reopening the car wash. He's looking at some other business opportunities for that side. Any questions about that particular update? Okay. Downtown, here you see the rendering of a 90-unit, 5-story apartment building called the Residences at Bartlett Station. Another thing we've talked about here for quite some time, as well as the village board level, where the board entered into a contract, extended it a few times. It is with a corporate entity owned by Mr. Rafidia. So he's got the building approved. He's purchased the land from the village. There's a redevelopment agreement. And this is a really big project for our downtown. We keep talking about all these businesses and restaurants downtown. There's a vibrant neighborhood around the downtown, basically all single-family homes and a smattering of apartments across the street there. But one thing Bartlett hasn't had, when I started on this project, I would say 40 years, but now it's getting closer to like 44, 45 years since the last apartment building was built in our town. Was probably roughly 1980. And so this would be a huge addition to the town. Bring some new residents in, or in some cases, existing residents who downsize, or people who recently graduated or want to move back to Bartlett, but not necessarily purchase a home. So anyway, keep your eyes open for this. We do have a development agreement with the developer, so we expect to see some work commencing on it relatively soon. I don't have a real lot to report about 59 and Stearns. As you all know, that's our primary intersection for the most businesses and the ones of a regional and a national nature. As much as the downtown is mostly mom and pops shops, out that way you see the the Walgreens and the Home Depots of the world. And one thing that I'll say is that, as a staff, we realize that most of the BETA grants have been for people converting older buildings into restaurants and it's a very good use of it. But in terms of on the Route 59 corridor, all we've really seen is a few little sign BETAs, but there are a few more empty spaces coming up there. We show those spaces to mom and pops also, and not saying that you have to be a mom and pop entrepreneur like Rebecca's Bakery or O'Hare's to apply for a BETA grant, but those tend to be the ones that need it and apply for it and take some of the older spaces to renovate them. But I want to make that point that Scott and I and other staff are cognizant that there's some shopping centers that haven't had one yet, and we do offer them when people come in. There's some empty spaces on Route 59 and Stearns as well. I mentioned to you already, there's going to be a new owner of Dogfather Hot Dogs, and also, if you recall, it was called Gambits. There was a business called Gambits on the south side of Apple Valley in that little shopping complex. And I did contact the owner of that unit, who's going to be opening a place called On the Rocks by Bobby. If you had to make me guess when it'll open, I would say January at some point. Waiting on the state approval for the video gaming machines, but intends to open before that with a mix of pizza, American food, and Indian food. So keep your eyes open for On the Rocks by Bobby, hopefully opening up with it by the next couple of meetings. Any questions on that area at all? Okay, moving on. We talk about this a lot. Commissioner Perry's not here, but would bring up what's going on at 59 in West Bartlett on many evenings here. And for those of you who've driven past it, I'm sure you've seen the construction commencing on the housing portion of it. There's going to be quite a few units there and many phases and different types of housing units. And the area of that project that falls upon our EDC, myself, Scott, Joey, our administration department, is attracting some type of commercial development to that corner. Now, one thing I do want to point out, although it is 6.29 acres, and that's what they show on the marketing side of it, I've been told that the developable portion of it is maybe 60% of that. So really think of it as more like a 3.5, possibly 4 acre site with 2 acres or so of detention, or whatever type of engineering is required. That's a site, I can assure you, Scott and I have had many meetings with the broker for that, Peter Carless, and we've had some inquiries on it. I did put in my report, mostly fuel stations have been looking at it. We're trying to help attract some development there beyond that for maybe some local shopping or eating for the residents of that area, since there's going to be hundreds of people living right on that corner. But it's got kind of mentioned it towards the end, but this would be a good one for us to incorporate in our branding initiative too. And any questions about that particular corner?
So when you say that, okay, a fuel station has inquired.
Yeah, quite a few.
Okay, what other, I imagine they don't need 3 acres to do a fuel station, or maybe they do, I don't know. But with whatever's left, are you thinking strip mall? And what types of businesses?
That's a good question. Not really thinking strip mall. We've been, even though we're just kind of talking about this here tonight, the broker and our staff has been working on promoting this site for years. And our broker has probably reached out to all of, I'm going to call them the larger, more renowned strip retail developers in the area, including quite a few that have done projects in Bartlett. And I'm not going to name them all, but it's pretty lengthy. And they've all passed on it because we realize that there's a lot of projects that happen in Cook County, but the environment for doing like speculative retail near the Cook County DuPage border is very low. So what we're looking for, and the broker's looking for in conjunction with possibly fuel, is kind of a standalone QSR, as they would say, like a quick service restaurant. So it's more, not to say it won't ever be any strip retail, but at this point of time, it's looking very unlikely. And honestly, it is largely due to the tax implications of it. The fuel stations in particular, everybody's sensitive to county issues, but the fuel stations are maybe less so, where they're more driven on traffic counts and access and things like that. So I'm just going to generally say we haven't had the clamoring for that site that we originally envisioned, but that doesn't mean we're going to start working with the first developer that comes in looking to do something over there. We're going to try to do our best to get something sustainable and something that serves more than just really commuters driving up and down the street. It might end up just a fuel station, but we're looking for some other complementary uses. Any other questions about that? Lake Street corridor, I could talk about for a long time, but the short version is that it's the northern boundary of our community. If you were to drive straight north from downtown and go to that intersection on Lake Street and then turn right, once you get past the Dunkin' Donuts, what you'll see probably is like a mishmash of various properties, some empty, some dilapidated, some not in the village, some in the village. But what it is a good opportunity to develop that north end of town. I'm pretty sure we've talked about it before here at the EDC that we have retained the services of a TIF consultant. We've been engaging with them now for a number of months. It's called Tesca Associates. Their principal, you might not know this, their principal of their firm, Lee Brown, did our original comprehensive plan in the 1980s, and he created the downtown TIF district in 1986. He created the Brewster Creek Business Park TIF in 1999. He created the Blue Heron Bluff City one in, what was that? Can't remember what year that was off the top of my head. I want to say 2009. So he's very familiar with our town. And they already qualified it as a TIF, by the way. The first part of a TIF study is to study the numbers and the properties, and it easily qualified. And so the next phase he did, you all recall, we, talked about it a little bit, and then he came before the village board. He met with our staff, some of our staff, and then he met with the village board to go over parcel by parcel by parcel. So we'll talk about that more in the future. That's going to be one of the high priorities for our town. You keep checking, you keep your checklist of your priorities in terms of economic development. And for years, there wasn't like a cohesive plan for the Lake Street corridor. Really, there almost never was. But as you know, our largest sales tax producers that we're going to have in the village are going to be opening pretty soon on Lake Street. They've taken some old dilapidated properties and turning them into a Hyundai and Genesis dealership, so there's a great start. And anyway, we're going to keep you apprised as things go by. This TIF process, it should get approved early next year. Like I said, branding's kind of like the last thing we're talking about, but this will be a big element also. In terms of our economic development component of branding, our Lake Street corridor, we're going to get that involved with it one way or the other. We want to put it in the best potential light when developers are looking at it. Yes, it is in Cook County, but also there's massive development east of there in some other communities along Lake Street, and there's no reason we shouldn't have the same. There is going to be some of the area is designated as residential as well. So there's probably going to be apartments along there, some commercial, and we're also talking about cutting out some areas for some recreational uses as well. So the TIF plan's not done, it's in the works, but these are some of the comments that have been put forth by our staff and our board. Any questions about Lake Street? It's a huge area, and I went kind of fast. Okay. Brewster Creek Business Park, not quite done. People ask me for percentages. I mean, the TIF is done. The village just closed out that TIF after over 23 years, to be honest, after about 24 years. Because as you all know, you pay your property taxes for the prior year. And so the last year of the TIF was 2022. The last year of collecting TIF revenues is 2023. The way TIFs work, if you have something that's budgeted already before the TIF closes, you can set aside some TIF funds. The entirety of the TIF, I could talk about it all day, but the upshot of it is all of the TIF funds have been or will be spent. Just a massive, massive project. I mean, close to $100 million of village investment in infrastructure, over $300 million worth of private investment. The EAV, it's not quite at 100 million yet, but the last assessment didn't have like a new 400,000 square foot spec building. I mean, what's the EAV going to be on that? There's another 207,000 square foot build-to-suit on the horizon. There's other, when you talk about commercial, an infill site might be a couple acres. For our business park, an infill site might still have like a 40, 50,000 square foot building. So there's probably 4 or 5 more infill sites left. Along the ComEd easement, on the east side of, trying to think if that's Humbrocht. But the long story short, I mentioned that there's two speculative buildings that I talked about here earlier in the year. One of them 400,000 square feet. I'm working with a major prospect on that who's kind of in the home stretch of hopefully closing on the building as a purchase. And that was a building that cost upward of $40 million to build. And there's another, like I said, soon to be built 207,000 square foot building by the same developer. They're called Midwest Industrial Funds. They're an institutional developers, you might surmise by the name. I could talk about Brewster Creek at length, but it's just about done. We hold it up as a perfect example of the way TIFs should be implemented. We're proud of it. It took a depleted gravel pit and turned it into like a huge economic engine for the village. That's what I would say every year at the TIF meetings. It's the economic engine of the village. On your day-to-day life, you probably don't think about it or see it, but there's like over 5 million square feet of buildings there. There's like 75 businesses, thousands of employees. We estimate over 7,000 employees. And besides the employees, there's customers and vendors coming and going all day. And one more thing I'll say about it, I say often, the customers and vendors that come there are like, you could grab the S&P 500 list from the stock pages and say, Boeing is a customer there, Ford is a customer there, Walmart is a customer there. You could kind of go right down the line. There's a lot of businesses there that are into the auto supply chain. And obviously, the Chicago area food market is largely served. You probably can't go to any town without seeing a Greco or a Get Fresh truck. And not to mention, Rana has just grown and grown and grown, and they're going to be building another building pretty soon. So that's always fun to talk about our business park. And yeah, any questions about Brewster Creek in particular?
When you say that Rana's going to build another building, are they vacating the one to get larger, or are they going to run two?
No, I'm not going to say they're never. I'm going to knock wood. They're working on a site that's outside of the business park.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an additional building. They've only built and built and built. So they won't. That's a good question too, but no, they're not going to vacate any buildings in the foreseeable future.
Because Tony, how many buildings do they have out there?
I was afraid somebody was going to ask that because, yeah, you're holding up 4.
Yeah.
I think it's 4. I think it's 4. There's one building that they acquired that was originally built, one of the biggest, at the time it was the biggest building, Dania Furniture. Many years ago, I worked with Dania Furniture. They weren't there for very long. That's the building just directly adjacent to them, and they bought that one just for cold storage. Bless you. So there's a whole building. They have like a 300,000 square foot building that they just use for storage even. So then they have their headquarters building. This one's going to be another production facility. Yep. Blue Heron and Southwind, as Brewster Creek filled, I'm going back to the Jim Plonzinski days. We used to joke that the uses that weren't allowed in Brewster Creek, we used to tell them go out to Blue Heron because we have stuff there like shingle recycling, and we've got the 2 biggest sign companies in the state where they have like 5 acres of signs behind their buildings. So But as Brewster Creek got built out, it wasn't just those businesses that we started sending that way. We started sending out people like Elgin Beverage and other types of businesses that really couldn't find suitable locations in Brewster Creek, or they were affiliated with the developer of that entire business park, Dean Kelly. So that's all the way in our Kane County portion. Some people are still surprised when I tell them Bartlett goes all the way into Kane County. And so I called him, Dean Kelly, about 2 weeks ago because I had a particular company that was looking for a particular type of site. And they would not be a suitable use for Brewster Creek Business Park, but suitable for Blue Heron. So I called him to ask what was available. Only 2 more lots. So this was a 2009 TIF district. There was nothing there as recently as like 2011 or 2012. I would go to the Joint Review Board every year and say it's going to be another business park. There's going to be some grading there. There's going to be some roads. Probably said that for 2 or 3 years. And then the roads went in, and next thing you know, it's starting to fill up. The developer, I call him developer / owner of the business park, Dean Kelly. A lot of the businesses were brought in directly by him and his team and his brokers. And so that's going to be probably, I don't have a crystal ball, but I would imagine it'll be probably by a year from now. I'll probably sit here and say those 2 lots have probably been sold. There's people looking at them. But one thing I did want to mention, the last paragraph, because I've been talking about it for a long time, and it was over a year ago that I started working with a would-be developer who wanted to build a commercial strip retail area over there, which we encouraged wholeheartedly. This would be just directly east of the True North fuel station. He bought a 2.9-acre commercial piece and just honestly kind of sat on it. He's been engaging with us again. We've been kind of pestering him a little bit. And I mean, the people who live out that way, not saying they won't come downtown, but I mean, if you want to get a gallon of milk or some bread late at night, it sure would be a handy thing to have over there. And my last sentence there is we hope to get this project going in 2024. I mean, I engaged with him a lot late last year, encouraging him. He's kind of downstairs now, as I say, working with planning and development services, trying to get his plans together. It's pretty early still probably in his process, but like I say, I always try to project what will I be saying here a year from now. I'd like to be saying it's in the process of getting approved, or he just started it, or it's going to be built at a certain point. I'm not going to hold my breath, but that's one of our projects we have we'd like to get going next year.
Did we say what's going in that building? Do we know yet?
Oh, that building?
That one, yeah.
That is a self-storage building. I had to look up what that was. That's a picture I took about a week ago.
Yeah.
The day before I put the packet out. It was last Wednesday, was a sunny day, I think. And honestly, it's such a nice-looking building. I thought maybe it was like a food facility or something like that. That's a self-storage. That's the big self-storage we were talking about. That's like about 100,000 square feet or so.
All right.
That's the one you see right on
Yeah.
on the road when you're driving by. And branding that we talked about again here, started talking about it a long time ago, and then put it on pause, and then did the request for proposals that the EDC looked at and refined. And believe it or not, that proposal was already due like a year ago. We put it out last, I think, October of '22, and it was due December, and then we extended it because we made a bunch of changes to it. And we got a couple of, I think we got 8. Anyway, long story short is we selected a firm. You guys recommended A5, And so that's who we've contracted with. They've been out in the community, they've been doing surveys, they've been going to our events. The three of us you see sitting here usually meet with them either every Thursday or every other Thursday. So this is moving forward. They have close to, I think he just told us today, they have about 1,000 respondents now to their survey. In the next coming months, we're going to start seeing some of their brand identity ideas. One of the projects I'm working on right now, and Scott and I are working on, is putting together the proposal for next year's budget. This year, we talked about it a little bit at EDC. We budgeted $25,000 this year. So they're doing $25,000 worth of work, you know, and then halting when they hit that number. And so we're budgeting for what we want them to start doing again May 1st. And that's like, what they're doing now is actually kind of coming up with the brand. They're going to propose some slogans and images and thoughts and ideas to us in the coming months. But what they're proposing for us now is what to do with it next year. Do we want to do radio ads, print ads, TVs, WGN at home show, you know, different publications in the area, social media videos, or whatever the case may be. So I didn't want you all to forget about branding because we haven't been talking about it for a bit, but that's going to be one of our big things, and it's going to end up being something that the EDC sees and weighs in. What do we use it for? Because it's not going to be purely used just as an economic development tool, but, you know, that's going to be a big part of it. I would say if you asked us today, we would say we would want to use our economic development portion of it, we would want to use to promote our restaurants. Is a good thing to bring like tourism type of and spending dollars, and let our own residents know all the dining options in town. And as I've mentioned, it's changed a little bit over the past months. And also in terms of an area to promote, to try to get in front of the eyeballs of a would-be developer, would be the Lake Street corridor. Brand new TIF, great opportunity, Bartlett, 40,000 vehicles, 40,000 people. You know, let's get something good over there. And I don't know if I would say to a lesser extent, but also depending on what happens at the Crown property at West Bartlett Road and 59, and why not promote both anyway? You can promote both together. So I think that's our last slide, but if you have any questions about the branding, I'll try to answer it, or Scott or Joey.
The survey, is it available on the village website? Or how can someone access that survey to make a response?
It was on for a limited time. It was on our Facebook, our app, our Bartletter, the website, our Twitter.
Okay.
Trending now, our bi-weekly newsletter.
Yeah, we've
The board, the QR code and everything, that QR code was every place.
Okay.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, and the chamber was kind enough to blast it, and some of the local area groups as well. Some of the organizations. I'm sorry? About 1,000, yeah. Yeah, they just hit it, I think, this week.
I have a comment, not about the branding, but in general, that I feel like you covered a lot more this meeting about the businesses that opened recently. And I feel like you tell us about the businesses that you're working with and the future, where I really appreciate it. You would know each month, these are the businesses that opened. Oftentimes at the chamber, we hear of businesses from other people that are opened, and Mary will say, well, why didn't we know that?
Right.
It would be really nice to have a list each month of these are the businesses that opened this month.
That's a good idea.
So a good way that we, as commissioners, could reach out to them and welcome them to take
Yeah.
addition to the chamber doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say there is some sensitivity about that until it's a done deal. It's not a done deal.
No, but
so-
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Give us the done deal
Yeah.
that these opened, these were.
Right. I mean, many years ago, new business would always be like, what are we going to talk about at an upcoming meeting? And I've morphed it over the years to try to do my best to keep you updated on all new businesses. I probably should just change that to new businesses and say, here's a few that opened. You know, there's periods where there's not a lot, and then there's periods like a lot. Like, you know, you talk about it and you go, well, the three of the most popular, you know, places that, I mean, Dogfather was like an institution in Bartlett where everybody, even a lot of people from out of town knew about it. And then Wheaties also became like another place kind of like that, so popular, and they have those close like kind of close to each other. And then Hoot Dog, we're like, it's a very ripe opportunity for somebody to come in and do a good job and have that kind of food. You know, Scott and I, we still talk with Manny frequently, even though he's not here for beta grants and stuff these days. But he doesn't sit around too long and wait for something to go vacant. Even if Mo's didn't come out, I'm sure Mike knows this, there were two or three other people lined up behind them to go into that space.
Mary and I were at Mo's today, and not only was the food good, but we didn't get there till after 1 o'clock, and it was crazy busy. All the tables were full, and people just kept coming.
Yeah.
I saw more people today in that location than all of Hoot Dogs.
I think any of us who went there, because I had lunch there Friday, and I would say the same thing. There were 20 people packed into that little space, you know.
Yes, they are.
That was the one piece of advice I gave them.
Can you speak in the microphone so I could hear?
My friend was over there working with them, I believe, setting up like their payroll, their POS, before they even opened. And I said, just business advice, stay open past 5 o'clock. Just be available, you know, then.
Did they say 9 o'clock, and then on weekends 10 o'clock,
Yeah, I think
something
so.
like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I admire them. It's two young ladies, I believe, that were kind of the front of house.
They came out to the tree lighting for about an hour at the beginning of the ceremony and passed out old-fashioned flyers, just like that old-school marketing system. And that's,
I admire their entrepreneurial drive. I think they're going to do great.
We have a ribbon cutting set up for them for
January 9th.
January 9th.
Oh.
She wanted it like next week. She was so excited, and we said, there just really isn't enough time to promote it, and people are busy. Can we do it in January? And she just, oh, can we do it January 2nd? And I said, I really don't think that's a good day. And I said, is the reason you want to do it just because you're really excited? And she said, yeah.
I think that's a,
Hold off.
And what day did you say?
January 9th.
Yeah, that was the latest I could postpone her, but
I think that's a Tuesday.
it's a Tuesday.
We should everybody go to that one. That's going to be a good one.
It was Karen,
Yeah.
Mara, the owner, Frankie, the owner was there, and, yeah, so they joined the chamber, and they were all excited, and, yeah. It
2 new members today.
was 2 new members today.
Way to go. So, yeah, the food, you know, every so often here, you know, I'll be honest, I didn't update the dining guide all year. At first I was waiting for it. Let me preface that saying the paper copy. We always have the app on our website, but, you know, I probably sat here in like the spring and said, well, I was waiting for more brewing to open. Well, more brewing open, but then something else closes, and you go, okay, well, I'd have to take them out, and then something else opens. I was telling Scott today, we're going to do one in the spring. You probably all heard, what is it, Little Caesars is coming, and I go, okay, that's the day they open. We're going to do a new dining guide. Whoever's open that day is going to be in it, and
So the chamber guide is too, the day it comes out, it's not.
yeah.
It's just, you gotta do it.
Yeah, because yeah, if we would have done that earlier, you know, it says wouldn't have been in it, and it would say Hoot Dogs, and you know, they become invalid kind of quickly. So I'll bring one in the spring. So that's the current development update.
So was everything merry and bright?
Yes, and for this one, I'm going to turn it over to anybody but me. I attended it. I'll just say, I'm speaking specifically about the cocoa crawl, not the tree lighting. Others can speak to. The cocoa crawl seemed like really great for me. Lots of people out. I saw a lot of you guys, and I figured Nan and Mike participated, and Kirsten, and can tell us about their experiences with the Marion Bright activities.
It was cold.
I mean, it was cold, but I mean, I can't speak for the tree lighting because I did ditch out because I just didn't want to get sick. I've been run down, so I did ditch out of the tree lighting. But or the Cocoa Crawl, from my advantage of where we sit at Advantage Bank, or Associated Bank, there was a lot of people with shopping bags. There were a lot of people coming from Martha's. Martha did a really good job decorating. But there were a lot of people from Banbury and Martha's and Rebecca's that were carrying bags. I saw a lot of people with bags. We did close ours early at 3 o'clock because it was already 3 hours past our closing period. And we went over to 120 to have lunch, and it was packed, crazy packed. I heard compliments of places like Carbon Express and Isla's and places that people, and Pensatinis, I always say it wrong. I say it wrong every single time. People that would have never gone there just went there because they felt like they could walk in, like it wasn't like, you know, it was an easy drop by kind of a thing. And they all said that they were going to be back to those places, that they discovered new things. Happy Hangout had a lot of people who just didn't know what it was until they walked in there and really liked it. So I think it was a great introduction to customers that normally wouldn't have just said, let me go to that business. So I think that was the best part of it. Yes, and I would say the groups too. There were a lot more families. There were a lot more people in costumes and in get-ups and stuff like that, making it like their event. Yeah, there were a lot of photos. Who was it? Who had Buddy the Elf? I think it was RJ Gray Photography, had a Buddy the Elf there. I mean, I think I was like walking all over downtown carrying his ornament. He was a hoot. Like people in cars were taking pictures of Buddy the Elf walking around with this ornament. So, I mean, I thought that was super cute. That could be something that could be added in the future as like little characters at different spots or something. Because people were like doing photo ops. They were just, it really was a good family event.
Was the participation of the businesses about the same as previous years? That's one thing I was curious, because I looked at the list.
Yeah, we had some businesses that added, some that dropped, but relatively right around that 30 to 35 number.
I don't see why, I mean, if I had even any type of business, any other business, it's essentially free advertising for them, and it brings people into it's fun, I love it. I bring my boys, and they serve the hot chocolate. I mean, you came in, Tony, and saw them, and I think it's a fun event. I love that in the Halloween thing. I think it's just, the cheesier the better. I think it's fun.
You like your Hallmark, Mike.
I said that, man. Hallmark makes money, man. That's it.
Nobody comes to casino night like you. Yeah.
See, I'm coming home from a cruise early just to make sure I get there on time.
Oh,
We appreciate it.
I can't wait. I have a new coat, so it'll be fun.
you know, it's surprising, it shouldn't be though, because this is how it is, but I had somebody contact me today, annoyed, that how would they have known about the Cocoa Crawl, a business? And so I kind of said, I'm straight on that not only did the village let everybody know, but it's been out there, Mary's put it in every one of her mails.
Was it the village or somebody, or I'm sorry, was it a business or
It was a business, and so then when I said I'm straight on all the different places, including every week for how long that Mary's included it, then he did apologize for his tone of his email, and he realizes now that, yeah, he should have seen that. But even Carbon Express, what was it, the day before, when we were there and we were talking about it, and she didn't know, so it's so hard, because it's not like it's a big secret, but these businesses have to help us help them.
Do we put anything in, or is there anything put in that what is it called, the Bartlett?
I'm sure there is,
I don't,
yes, other than,
It was on the cover, yeah, a couple.
yeah, so I don't know, some of them that don't participate, they don't know about it because, you know, it's a big secret.
I think it also goes back to, like, you know, Scott said at the tree lighting that, you know, the people from Mo's Garrows were out there handing out the handbills. I think, and we've talked about this before, you know, at the bank, we mail thank you cards, and people are like, oh my God, a thank you card. I think people are so inundated by the emails and all those things that they've kind of shut down to that communication, that those old ways of reaching out are kind of the thing that we need to do, and it has to be like grassroots. Like, you know, when I was at Mo's and I was like, okay, you're gonna join the chamber, right? I'm gonna send somebody over, we're gonna talk to you. I think we've got to put the effort in, and it is hard. How do we do that? Do we have handbills that we drop when we visit businesses? I mean, I think that Cocoa Crawl was every place I saw, but I'm also at a different level seeing things than some other
We
businesses.
always tell small businesses in Bartlett that if you want to be successful, you have to get outside of your four walls. That's really critical, is getting outside of your four walls, and all the small businesses that you have seen do that over the years are the ones that are obviously successful.
You're right.
So, do we have any new business outside of the update we just went through, Tony?
Is there gonna be a recap of, the Cocoa Crawl and the voting and unofficial meeting?
Yeah, we'll have a follow-up meeting as a committee, you mean? Yep, we'll have a follow-up meeting. We're going to be sending out an email in the next few days to businesses and to participants in terms of feedback to get from them. And then I think after the holiday season, we'll probably get together as a committee.
Okay, because we had some suggestions. Hopefully they won't be gone by then.
Is the date for next year set, or can it be set kind of soon?
I mean, for the most part, it's the first Friday in December, followed by the Saturday following for the Cocoa Crawl is what we've been doing.
Because I think maybe now is a really good time to that point of people not knowing about it, is to really kind of keep it on social media and just hit some of the highlights of Cocoa Crawl and the tree lighting, and just really kind of, you know, wishing you a happy holidays. Here's kind of a look back, and don't forget, mark your calendar. Not that anyone's gonna mark their calendar, because I wouldn't, but, you know, it kind of makes you feel like you gotta be in the group, you know?
And I know we had a photographer out there at the tree lighting, so that's something that as soon as that stuff comes in, all those pictures come in, we'll be kind of making the rounds throughout the holiday season, making sure everybody sees the fun we had.
Well, final agenda item on the docket is number 8, adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
We'll take a roll call, Tony?
Sure. Jerry Kabasco,
Yes. Aye.
Adam Lewinsky, Mike Densford,
Yes.
Annette Gutenkopf, Robert Gorski,
Aye.
and Kirsten Erickson.
Yep.
It's unanimous. We're adjourned.